Today's interview, you know him, you love him. It's Wes Spencer from Empath MSP. Listen, the guy's been in the channel for a really long time, and as we talk about a little bit in the interview, that's not always easy to do. This is an industry that doesn't mind crucifying people who need it, or the industry perceives that they need it. But what's cool about today's interview is it confirms a suspicion, it confirms a belief that I have, which is that the things that make you a better salesperson are a lot of the same traits that just frankly make you a better person. We talk about EQ, we talk about soft skills and how developing that is not just a nice to have and it shouldn't be an afterthought, but it's actually a formula to helping you generate more money. So it's just a great interview of a guy that's been in the public eye, if you don't mind my saying, of the channel for a long time. And things that, they're really helpful, realistic, grounded ideas that can not just benefit you in your life, but they can truly directly benefit you in your career. Let's get into it. Wes Spencer, I've talked to your buddy Alex much more than I've talked to you, but we finally got you here. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, man, I'm super glad to be here. Thanks.
You guys are making big waves all the time. Empath is always announcing something exciting. It seems like you guys kind of just started, Empath did, but now it feels like I don't remember a world before you were here.
I guess we're doing something right then. You know, and you know this as well as anybody. It's easy to be a megaphone and a loud, like just a loudspeaker wherever you go, but also being intentful about what you're talking about and what you're doing. And that's what we're trying to do a better job of. Because like I hear from people all the time that are like, I know who you are. I know the elephant. I don't really know what you do. Or I'll say something like, yeah, we just hired our 21st employee. Like, what? I thought it was just the three of you. I'm like, no, I know there's more to it than that. So yeah, right. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about you. I probably say your name once every 2 weeks to some random person. So you've done a very good job of being, I'll say, like maintaining relevance. And I think a part of that is that you've just been around quite a while in the channel. Like you've just been doing a good job for a long time. But you have that sort of Snoop Dogg effect where you just keep coming out with more relevant things and finding new rounds of people to care about what you're doing. Have you ever been compared to Snoop Dogg? This mustn't be the first time.
That is a literal first. Yeah, usually. So a friend of mine from ConnectWise in my days there, he's like, you're like more like the Mr. Rogers of cybersecurity. And I'm like, I think I like that because I loved Mr. Rogers growing up. So like, right. Yeah, Mr. Rogers over here and Snoop is like the far other end. But I appreciate the analogy because Snoop is the coolest. And he was just at Beyond. And you know what's funny about him? Is I would say it was one of the worst concerts I've ever seen. Like all he did was look at his laptop the whole time and occasionally play a song and play part of it, like part of Gin and Juice, and then let the audience do the rest of the work. And people still walked out. I was like, dude, it was Snoop. It was so awesome to see him. And I just think he has that star power to where like he just kind of does his little thing here and there and everyone's still happy with the result. Isn't that crazy?
I know. I remember he came out at DadoCon at like 8 a.m. on day 2 back in 2018. And everybody was just like not ready for it. And he just comes up and he's just like screaming and then just vibing out to his own music and like smoking a joint on stage. And I'm like, this guy probably made $50,000 to $100,000 to come out here and just vibe to Gin and Juice and then leave. Not a bad gig.
Not a bad gig. I know it.
Talk about a guy who's figured out brand, which you guys have done really well. Yeah. I mean, Empath, for anybody who doesn't know, do you want to explain to the audience like what you're doing at Empath?
Yeah, like our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal is we want to become the North Star for growth for MSPs, right? Like think of us as a learning platform that's fully modular, it's customizable, it's got integrations into things like the PSA, and it really lets you get a handle and grips around your employee growth. You know, you look at your P&L and your people are by far the most expensive line on there, not your tools. And yet we gravitate towards the tools, and the tools are great, right? But there's so much more to that. And why have we not invested in our people the way we should? And so that's really what Empath is all about, is a platform for growth that lets you put your hands on the wheel and finally get consistency and accountability around it.
Right. And as you say it, it's like, yeah, how has nobody done this? Maybe people have tried, but there's very little, there's very little EQ in general in the channel. Let's just call a spade a spade. Like,
Sure.
I feel like sales culture is 10 years behind the rest of professional culture and EQ, and IT is like 10 years behind sales.
Yeah, I agree. And it's shocking to me, but then again, maybe it's not, right? Because you look at the demographics of our industry, how many people came out of like fixing printers for their local hospital only to start a business, not knowing what it takes to grow and scale it. And, you know, soft skills are certainly not something that's ever been at the forefront. Learning to grow and scale a business has not been there. And even look at the M&A data, right? So many MSPs sell between 5 to 10 million in revenue because to get past that 10 million mark requires a sales culture and a sales org in the MSP. And they don't know how to do that. Many of them don't know how to do that,
Right.
and just sort of say, I feel like I'm spinning wheels here. And some acquirer comes down the road and it's really attractive to take that offer because you don't know what to do as your next step.
Right. Right. That's interesting. We should dive into this because there's sort of two sides to the coin of like how to grow your MSP. And I talk about both of them all the time. There's the system implementation of like building RevOps, but then there's the soft skills part of running a business, making people care about you. That is really what I feel like Empath is actually kind of an interesting mix of both of those. But you guys are like big soft skills advocates. What do you think the role is, especially in the 0 to 3 million mark, or even the 0 to 5 million mark? Do you think soft skills is the key to consistency in sales, or do you think it's a nice to have, and you just need to find a sales unicorn and not go out of business for 20 years, and that's how you do it?
Well, so it's funny we're talking about this because I'm working with two really good MSP friends of mine that both are at $25 million plus MSPs. And we're talking through like their insights on how did they get to that stage and what did every revenue band look like, the 0 to 5 to 5 to 10, and just kind of taking each of those stages of growth. And one of the things that both of them agreed on was that for sure 0 to 5 is 100% founder led. All sales led growth is from the founder. And I think a large degree of what holds an MSP back from 2 million to 3, from 3 to 5, that sort of thing, is the capability of the founder themselves, right? Like, how good are they at walking into a deal, smiling, learning how to shake a hand, understanding the business, talking about the problem, communicating with confidence what they're going to be able to solve for, and growing, right? Like, you can definitely get to 5 million easily off that level of hustle as a founder. But at some point, you start to hit this level where you're like, I can't do all the minutia. And I have to find some kind of technical account manager. And I have to start thinking about what does technology strategy look like. And I have to start outsourcing some of those roles. And by the way, I can't just always have my hands on the keyboard either. And now you have to start to say, what does it look like to find and grow those people? And that's a different story entirely, right? And I think that's where the major first hurdle comes in growing your MSP, is getting yourself out of the way of what you've gotten yourself to. And then I also think the founder starts to realize, like, I also can't abdicate it completely. I still have to walk in and close some of those deals. I was talking with Sean Torres, a friend of mine, out of Lafayette, Louisiana, and he's still like, they're, I don't know, somewhere between 40 and 50 million in revenue. And he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, I'm still closing deals, the strategic ones. And he said, I love it. It's like who I am. So I think there's always that deal that there's always that need for the founder to know how to do that. But at some point you also have to learn to get out of a lot of the minutia there.
Right. And you just used that word abdication. That's like something that I've been writing my scaling framework into a book recently. And so I've just like been kind of existentially examining every single one of my talk tracks over and over again to be like, does this still make sense? Does this make sense? But what I found is there's two extremes for delegation. There's the abdicator and the micromanager. And it's always the exact same. I see this every single time. It's easy to quote unquote delegate things that you're terrible at. You're really just like giving it away. And that's usually falls into the abdication space. Like, hey, I'm going to hire a slick, good looking young kid to grow my business. And he goes, how do you want me to make these sales? And you go, I don't care. That's your job. I'm going to be over here in the server room playing with things, because that's really what I think running a business means. But then there's the micromanager, where you hire a tier 2 technician, the thing that you're amazing at. And you're like, great, you can do it. I want you to do it, but you have to do it exactly the way that I would do it. Not any different, and you have to come to me and get approval before you fire any executables. Like, you have not delegated anything. You're trying to give somebody responsibility without any authority, versus the abdicator is trying to give them authority but not giving them the clarity on their responsibilities. And That's, I think, another way of saying what you're describing. There's a balance between soft skills. Soft skills can get you to 3 million, to 5 million. Just like be a great human being who's convincing and don't stop. But then at some point, if you want to like lever up and become something where the owner could not be there for 3 to 6 months at a time, you obviously have to become more systematic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% well said. And I do, by the way, when the book comes out, let me know. I can't wait to read that for sure.
Sure,
but
thanks.
you are right. And I think it's the classic like technician's problem. Same with like the classic consultant's problem. They can't get out of their own way. And usually it has to do with this is the way service quality looks. And this is exactly how we have to do it. One of the things that we talk about at Empath all the time is managing up. And so when we bring someone into a role, first thing we tell them is it's your job to tell us what you need to be successful and tell us what we need to do to help you get there. Right. And so that for us, it's really ingrained well into our culture of managing up. And all our people that are flourishing are doing that. And they're doing it so well. And I think you just have to have the humility to say, I hired you for this role. I'm confident that you have the skill set to do it. I know how we measure it and what the expectations should look like. And once you have that in place, you do have to, I know it sounds cliche, but you have to get out and let them do that role and let them manage you. Be willing to let that happen.
Right. There's this author I quote all the time who said, prisons are full of people who lawyers practiced on.
Ouch.
I know. It's pretty nasty, but like what hiring somebody means is you're officially giving them permission to make huge mistakes that will cost you something.
Yeah.
And that's what delegating means. You know, I'm not saying you're leaving them out in the lurch, but like, yeah, they're going to mess something up. So you want to have processes to protect them and help them succeed. But dude, that's like part of it where, oh, we're building a new system and oops, somebody got a contract cancellation email because the wrong automation fired. And now I got to go there. Now they feel weird and I got to call them. Like that's just a part of the growing pains, perhaps, of the business, you know? But I like the way that you just described that. Like MSP owners are easily their own biggest problem 99% of the time. Well, I'll say it another way. Human beings are their own biggest problem 99% of the time. And no matter how many books you read, at some point you have to actually recognize what you're bad at. And I think that's the question I want to ask you is what role do you think self-awareness plays in the personal and professional development that you want to help MSPs with? And how does somebody develop that over time?
I think about that fairly often. Someone had a post on LinkedIn just the other day that kind of relates to this of like sometimes the things that we say or we don't say to somebody really impact significantly their view on you, their view on the company. And you're like, I don't even remember that. I didn't interpret. I wasn't trying to blow them off. It was interpreted that way. So I think one of those things about self-awareness, for me, it's hard to be, I have to recognize that it's hard to be self-aware to start with. And so you do have to approach some of that with some humility of accepting some of that critique and say, wow, that was really helpful for me to see that. I'll give you a simple example. I know so many people now, after years of being in the industry, when I'm at a conference, I have to learn to walk down the hallways with a head on a swivel, intentionally making eye contact with everybody. Because I don't want someone to walk by and I make no eye contact with them. And they think, well, there's a jerk. Like I know him. We've talked 3 or 4 times and he just walked right by me, didn't care. Just a small thing that I just have learned over time. You just have to be ready for those kinds of situations. So I think self-awareness for me is hard because probably for everybody, we don't recognize what we're not good at. And it does take some humility for someone to come back and show you those areas that you suck at.
Yeah. Dude, you just shined a light on something that we could easily talk about for the rest of this podcast. It probably wouldn't be as relatable, but allow me to use a term that's not a perfect term, but I think it represents what I want to say, is that you have a certain degree of celebrity in the channel. And that actually sincerely comes with really weird really weird strings. When people know who you are, especially if you're a brand and you make all this content and people have watched you sit in airplanes and talk and all this crazy stuff you do on video, then they feel this sense of connection with you, camaraderie, which is great. And it's worth a lot. That's why you, Alex, and Kyle launched Empath. And I'm not saying it happened without any work, but you guys all had 3 fantastic brands that you fused together and leveraged really well. And it's like, oh, good, the guys that I already know and love are doing this thing that I know and love. But like, now people have this sense of entitlement to a connection with you or relationship with you. People feel they feel a familiarity with you that might be 100% fabricated, or they might have interpreted you a certain way just based off of what they've seen about you. Like, can I ask you, like, how does that feel going into a conference where people all have T-shirts with your name on it that says not Wes Spencer?
Yeah, that's a story in and of itself, right? Those who don't know what we're talking about. If you don't know my co-founder, Alex, he loves to troll. It's like what he lives for. There's coming a day, like, he will exit the channel completely except just to troll people, and that's all he'll be around for. And so he did that with me. I wore a T-shirt. I have a YouTube channel. And so, like, for years, I pumped YouTube just because it was fun for me when I had time. I don't have time for it now. And so I wore a shirt once that had my name on it. I wore the shirt once. My wife is like, if you ever wear that again, I'll kill you. And I'm like, no problem. I threw it away. That's a great example of, like, I never thought anything of it ever again. But all everyone perceives when they see, like, LinkedIn or any headshot of me is my stupid face with that stupid name on the shirt. That's what all, and I never think about it ever again. And that's all they think about. And so Alex comes out with that Not Wes Spencer shirt. And I was so embarrassed. It was beyond embarrassing for me. Like, and he was reveling in that moment. And so was everyone else. And it was one of those moments where it taught me a great lesson of just learning to deal with it. And learning to, like, let myself be embarrassed and let people make fun of me. Like, it lets people see I am a human. I'm just a normal person. I'm no different than they are. Like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, I hate every second of this, but I just have to deal with it because at the end of the day, Brian, like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm nothing different than anybody else. I just turn, to steal from, like, Eric Bowles, I just turn a camera on. I say what I think. That's it. And so, if I fall into that lion trap that I am a celebrity, then you become too good for people and you don't need relationships and you don't need to, like, I can just live in my studio and do my thing and never touch people ever again. Like, but that's not who I want to be. I do want to build meaningful, real relationships. I really do. And so for me, that's like, that was the great lesson I think I learned out of that is, like, I'm not a celebrity and I don't ever want to think of myself that way because I just think it's poison to growth. And even your comment too of, like, founder-led growth. There's that book. I don't know if the audience has read it. It's called Founder-Led Growth by Dave Gerhardt. And it's so good, but he's missing a chapter. And one of the chapters I think he's missing is, if you do a great job with your founder brand, yes, you can launch a company off of that, but there still is the difficulty of people understanding what it is that we do versus who we are. And we have struggled with that. Like, that's a big push that we've making efforts into of who is Empath and what is it, independent of Wes, Alex, and Kyle, right? And so, yes, it makes your journey to start easier, but it also compounds the difficulty in conveying value that, like, it's not just me. And if I ever want to exit my company one day, I have to find ways to separate. This doesn't have to be done by Wes. And if I want to scale my company one day, which we're in the middle of, it can't just be all Wes and Kyle and Alex. It can't be. So those are things that also become challenges as much as they are boons to growth in the early days. Right.
Because it's like you're basically borrowing authority from your personal brand that you're going to have to pay back with interest because you're going to have to reestablish that independent authority over time later. And then wean the personal brand out of it.
Exactly. If I may, take Huntress, right? Kyle has done an unbelievable job of the identity of Huntress and their capabilities in the early days. It started with Kyle. What does Kyle know? What does Kyle see? And he has done such a good job of getting himself out of the way. How often do you see all he does now is just reinforce? He doesn't typically lead with, like, what's the cool thready threats that the world's seeing. He's got a great team of people that are doing that. And like, I definitely look at him and look up to him as somebody that's done a great job of learning how to handle all of that well.
Yeah. There's so many things I want to ask you about, and I'm editing in my head because you're a really fun guy to talk to because, and if you're not too bashful for a compliment, I think you have a very high EQ for our channel, and it shows. Like, some of the stuff you're describing, you had to learn over time. Like, okay, if people know who I am, we're sort of in an industry, dude, that kind of loves to crucify people.
Yep.
I have learned. I haven't been around nearly as long as you, like, my reputation and my follower count and all of that is a reflection of it. But I do have, I'm a pretty strong cup of tea. And so some people love me and some people do not. I kind of always say if you haven't gotten hate mail, then you're not doing anything important.
Yeah.
Because, and I've gotten plenty of it. I get more love than hate, but I certainly get some hate. But like there was a Tech Tribe thread that somebody was just like obliterating one of my direct competitors. And I thought it was a little bit gratuitous. Like, now I had nothing to lose from this thread. Do you understand? They were taking a direct competitor and talking about how terrible they are and this specific strategy or campaign they had that's been around for a very long time that a lot of people know about and talking about why it was so awful. And honestly, it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And what what was in my heart was, can I just weigh in as like a benevolent third party who has nothing to gain here from, like, I'm not the vendor. I'm not defending. I'm not in the debate. I have no dog in the fight. I just wanted to like steer the conversation back towards productive things, because so many MSPs, like, they'll try a vendor for a while and then it doesn't work. And then the MSP takes zero responsibility and just basically says, this person's a liar. I hate them. And they robbed me. And then they leave as a victim and they don't have anything to show for it. So this guy was just ripping into this vendor. And I said a comment to the effect of like, I won't be too specific here because you could go find it in Tech Tribe. But I was like, hey, you know what? I know this is, I'm sorry this didn't work for you. I hope you know that there are a lot of vendors out here that really just want you to succeed. And he just turned on me with the force of 1,000 suns. It was like, you shouldn't say anything in here. You should have nothing to say in this thread, blah, 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 blah. And he just came at me super hard. And it was like, humbling maybe is a word for it, but it was also like, oh, okay, maybe my voice don't matter as much as I want to matter, but also these people will turn on me the second they have a reason to. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I do.
And it's just sort of the DNA of like, we're tight-knit and very protective industry of a lot of guys who are like, we have each other's backs. And I think that, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts, but one of my big takeaway is when you have somebody with longevity like yourself, there's really no way to fake that, because this industry would have canceled you as soon as they could, frankly, over the last however many years you've been here. Do you see what I'm saying? But you've made it because of your intentionality and your value. But I'm curious to hear what you think.
I think you have to live out your core values for sure. Like you don't have to be, you're never going to be perfect. I can give you examples, probably wouldn't name names. If you want them, I'll give them to you. But I can give you examples of colossally failed in the core values I try to live by, right? Like in two of my big core values, just personally, I like to steal from Tara Rumner at Imibot. She always talks about personal core values. And one of mine is don't burn bridges. And the second one is treat others the way you want to be treated. Like, I know they're very simple core values, but like I strive deeply to follow them. I'm not perfect at them. I have failed at them. But I think when you have that in mind and you know deeply who you are and who you're trying to lean into, it does become something to where I think about reputation all the time. And I think about how quickly it could all fall down and fall apart. It doesn't take long. We're a tiny industry. Yeah. So yes, I think about that often, and I work hard to maintain that, because I think that consistency of just trying to be who I am from what people think about me to who I am when people meet me, I want that to be the same. I don't want people to be like, wow, he is just way different than what I thought. And so I think if you know your core values and leaning heavily into them becomes important. I'll just take someone else. Take Alex, since we mentioned him before. Dude is grumpy. Dude will fight you. Dude is a bulldog. But dude will stand up behind and like, he will be your greatest advocate when he knows you're in the right spot doing the right thing. And he is that way no matter where he goes. And I deeply love that about him, right? And that's just not me. I'm never that way. I'm more happy to just walk away from a conflict, never, I'll store it as a chip on my shoulder and I'll work through it. And I'm super competitive, but I don't let it show. Whereas he will just blast the universe. And again, he's true to his core values. So when people meet him, like, that's who he is. And so I think that's where it comes from, is like, you don't have to be Mr. Nice Person, but just be true to who you are. And then that goes miles. And you're right. Sometimes you have that personality, people love you or hate you. And okay, that is what it is. What I've learned though, is the people that don't know me, this is why I don't hang out in Reddit very much. I just can't, because I don't know any of those people and they don't know me. And so anything that I post or say, it comes with zero effect, because there's all anonymity. There's no meritocracy. And I just stay away from that completely. And I just live where I can make relationships, and then I bank on, the integrity that I built to carry me from there. And that's really worked for me well.
Yeah. Dude, I'm the same way. I have a 0 Reddit policy. I just have, one of my life rules is, if you won't sign your name to your opinion, I'm not going to evaluate it. Period. And so, because it's usually not really a place for opinions, it's usually a place for redirecting all of our own frustrations, right? And taking our day out on somebody that we don't know. So it's like, okay, I'm not really sweating the, like, I've also, like, this phrase, I've never met a hater who was doing better than me. Like, haters don't punch down. Yeah. So usually it's somebody who's not really thriving, and they're like, well, that guy Wes Spencer, he's a real piece of shit. Like, yeah. All right, I think we don't have to sweat the small stuff. I want to pivot this conversation over to the listener, because soft skills is a completely underrated part of running an MSP, and frankly, growing an MSP. This is one of the things I'm even like, this is one of the things I pitched to Taher to speak about at ScaleCon. But if I don't speak about it there, I'll do my own thing later. But so many people who are doing the same, like, activity, the same consistency or quantity of, like, outbound activity or marketing activity, but they're not getting any results. It's like, okay, well, the activity works. Look, Google Ads work. It's objective. Yours aren't working. It doesn't mean Google Ads don't work. It means your Google Ads aren't working. So you have to say, what's wrong with my Google Ads, not what's wrong with Google. And if you run sales presentations and people ghost you, guess what? It's not the market, it's not the city, it's not the president, it's you. It was soft skills that you had. In addition to just saying the right script, the way you say something is 10 times louder than what you say. So, I mean, what advice do you have as a guy who builds a, like, soft skills and professional development platform? Not just what should people use Empath, because that's not what I'm talking about, but, like, how do people develop those skills, especially with the difficulty of the self-awareness, like we talked about? How do you become more emotionally intelligent?
Wow, it's hard. Let's see if I can get this out, because I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Okay. I come from a hard IT background. Like, my first job was a Linux admin at a B2B tire wholesaler, and I took the job in the early, like, the year 2000, because Y2K just finished up, and, like, I don't know, I just graduated college and I was nothing but technical, like, not any different than anyone else. I think maybe a couple things stand out, though. One is, somewhere along the line, you have to draw the line in the sand to say, I really care about people. And I recognize there are different people and different, like, there is a spectrum, right? And some people are just not going to be able to look someone in the eye, and like, I totally get that. I want to be very sensitive to that. But at the same time, like, at some point, you just got to make a decision to say, I care about people, and therefore I'm going to do some things I think go a long way. So for me, like, one of those is, like, trying to smile when you're talking to somebody. Yeah. Having the ability to just ask them questions, and I don't have to rule the conversation. In fact, if you ever see me around a whole bunch of people, like 3+ people, I am never leading the conversation. I'm not. It's not who I am. I'm not outgoing. I'm not extroverted. I'm just not. I'd rather be in the corner talking to one person or 2 people, and I'd rather be the person that speaks way less than more. That's just who I am. And so I think sometimes people think to have that skill set, you have to be this boisterous, loud, like, life of the party. And if you're listening today and you're like, well, I'm not, well, congrats, welcome to our world. Almost none of us are, but you can still accomplish all of those goals being an introvert. In fact, you might be able to accomplish them better because you don't have to be the life of the party. You can make the other person the highlight. And to me, nothing makes me happier than walking away from a conversation knowing that I turned, like, they said some degree of, I feel better about myself after I had a chat with Wes. He asked more questions about me than I did of him. That's, like, to me, that right. means so much more. And I think that's where a lot of the EQ comes from. It's like, just genuinely care about them and genuinely want to know what it is in their life and what they're working through and what they're interested in, what their world is like. And you get the added benefit of, you don't have to carry the conversation. And to me, that works really well, because if I have to carry it, it's very difficult just in a large group. I'm not good at it.
Right. It's like, wow. That's really, really insightful what you just said. But if you're feeling like conversation is a performance, you're doing it incorrectly. No matter how good you are at that performance, people are probably not going to leave feeling more connected to you. They're probably going to leave with opinions about you, but they're not going to necessarily feel very seen. A good buddy of mine made this post about like, if you leave conversations and you don't know anything about the person, they probably don't like you. And I have an interview with Paul Green, that's not out yet, who's like one of the most charismatic people that I know. And I boil it down to curiosity and compliments.
Yeah.
If you can do those two things, that's what you do, man. I've talked to you many times, and it's usually like Kyle and Alex is there, and Alex is looking around like Scrooge. He looks like he's looking for a place to sit down, and Kyle is like in his head, like, and you know, a little bit more intense than you. He's more of the golden retriever, I feel like, of the three of you, and you're the golden doodle, where it's like, well, you're obviously very smart, but you're also very nice. But I've always left and noticed about you that you compliment. You've complimented me twice since we've been here, and I remembered, and I'll journal about it later and feel special. But you ask questions about people, which is all it takes to make someone like you.
Yep.
A genuine compliment and a genuine question, and they'll leave going, I love that guy.
Yep. And
could it be that simple?
And isn't that encouraging? That like,
yeah,
that's all it really takes. But and people can tell if it's genuine or not. Like, man, you get past a compliment, they're like, I don't see that there. Like, I don't think you meant it. I think there's some kind of gain here. They can see through that. So like sure. And to me, it's so encouraging that that's what so much of it comes down to. And to me, again, replicating my core values of like treating others the way you want to be treated. Well, if that's in the front of your mind, you're going to communicate that way to them. You're going to speak that way to them. And they're going to, generally, it's going to be received well that way. And I think that's where a lot of that EQ does come from. And I do think, maybe to come back to this, I think it's probably more developed than it is native and nascent. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm no psychologist, but I would just encourage people listening today to not just discount, to say, well, I'm not built that way to have EQ. I get that there's a spectrum, totally, but I also think it is something you develop more than anything.
Yeah. I have a zero tolerance policy for anybody who writes off an essential skill because they just say, I just don't have that. Yeah, I don't put up with that. Like, I have a client who I had no clue. We got on a meeting. He's a client of mine. We got on a meeting talking about managed services, and he was like, "Hey, just so you know, if I start to lose you, can you let me know, because I'm autistic and I can't read facial expressions." And I was like, "You are?" He's like, "Yeah. So I won't know if I've lost you, and I won't be able to read that. So all you gotta do is just kind of let me know, and it won't bother me." And I was like, "Dude, this is a master class," because he had the awareness. And he knows, like, oh, there's like certain other people read body language. He's like, I don't have the spectrum. I don't see those. I can't see those colors. So just so you know, like Brian, I'm red, green colorblind. So sometimes people go, hey, can you hand me the purple one? I go, I need you to tell me what that means. I need you to point to it, please. Because I think I know what purple is, but I know that you see a different purple than I do. And I don't want to be wrong, because I want you to get the one you want. And if this guy can do that, and just communicate around his own boundaries and limitations. But that was a really sincere, earnest human connection we made, where now I'm fighting on his behalf for him to understand me, instead of leaving being like, that guy was so annoying, he didn't read any of my body language. And you know what I mean? So if that guy has those limitations with his social EQ, his social IQ, that he can develop processes to protect himself and other people around, I still think about this months later. So to me, that's an example of like, yeah, I don't really put up with a business owner saying like, I want to run a business, but I don't ever want to talk to people or do anything hard or sell anything. Like, okay, what you're describing is a job. Go get one.
Yep. And all this comes full circle to that question you asked about self-awareness, doesn't it? Of just recognizing that, yeah, wow, I'm not so good at that, and I need to communicate that. Or I know that, like, for me personally, I can check out of a conversation way too quick because I'm squirrel over here, very quick at those things. And so, yeah, I think it's very important to just know those limitations. And kudos to that person for even, man, doesn't that just make the conversation so much better? Because now you have the freedom to say, we're not following here, and maybe that's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely love that. Kudos to that person.
So we have the takeaway here is these are skills that are important, I think if we were to overly reduce this conversation, the tactics are there. You maybe are doing the tactics. If they're not always working, you need to start looking at the soft skills, not the hard skills. You need to start looking at the software, not the hardware. What's going on with how you're doing it, what you're doing, all that. And then, okay, develop soft skills. That's a pretty big, vague thing. There's a lot of ways you could do that. But do we have any advice, anything practical, the MSP owner, the founder who's trying to sell, who is aware of their limitations but not really sure what to do about it? Any more practical stuff like they can start doing in their next conversation that might help them?
So a couple things maybe I would think about. Let's see if I can get all my thoughts together here. One is it does start with understanding the areas that you're just not going to be good at, right? And I'll give you a great example. We talk about this at Empath all the time. I am a really, 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 really good sales engineer. Like, you want a great demo. I know the questions to ask ahead of time. I know how to dive into their pain points. I know how to solve for what they're looking for, and I know how to convey a great demo. I can run it at a speed and a level of energy that gets it across. I am the worst ever account executive. I don't know how to get a deal across the finish line without I'm just not good at it. And so for me, recognizing that doesn't mean that I just get the automatic pass of I don't have to work in that role anymore. Empath is still small, so I still have to carry deals across the finish line sometimes. But recognizing that I'm not good at it is so important to say I'm going to have to work a lot harder at it. And that might be one of the first things that I want to get myself out of that role. But understanding I got to go earn it for myself first instead of just, again, abdicating it because I'm not good at it. Because here's what will happen. And I've seen founders do this. They're not good at something. They figure out they're not good at something. So it's the first thing, we talked about this earlier, that you just abdicate and you walk away from it saying, well, I don't have to touch it anymore. It's like, no, that's probably all the more reason why you do have to be involved in it, not to the micromanaging level, but to make sure you're setting it up for success. Right.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, this is why I love having Alex and Kyle on board, because we are great offsets to our strengths and weaknesses. And I see it every day in how we operate. And so for me, it's a superpower for us that really lets us grow so much quicker, because we've got three of us that all have different strengths in different areas. So yeah, I think that's what I would really lean in towards telling people is find out and recognize what you're weak at, then learn you just still have to do it, and then earn the right to get out of it, but do it in such a way that you're constantly supporting it so it never has to become a problem that you have to go back into again. I know one founder that, sort of walked away from this thing, and this person had to go back and resume it all over again. And it's like, that's not the position that you want to be in. How do you avoid that from ever occurring again?
Right. And the evidence that you are that you're abdicating instead of delegating is that you have had 2 or 3 unsuccessful attempts. If you keep hiring and they fail, and you hire again and they fail, and you hire again and they fail, like, this is your sign right now, this moment, this is your cosmic reminder that you are not ready yet, for whatever reason, for that to be successfully offloaded. There's something in it that needs to be developed and articulated by you, a nuance that needs to exist, that will only exist when you buck up and handle it for at least a short amount of time. Right? At least, or a fixed amount of time.
Yeah.
Wes, that's good advice right there. I don't care who you are.
I've learned it through blood, sweat, and tears for sure.
Right.
And it's scary. The first few times you try to do this and you're, why is this not landing? Why am I not doing well at this? Why? And then learning, oh, I'm just not good at it. But yes, then the next step is, well, then I better start working on it, because, the difference between like building a habit and like a natural inborn skill set that you have is like, habits are things that you build. And they always say it takes 21 days to build a habit on something. So just because you're not good at it, just because it's not native to you, doesn't mean that you get to walk away from it. Maybe it's all the more reason to go build a habit around it, but full well knowing that's going to be one of the first things I'm going to walk away from. I think that's a healthy discipline in life to work towards.
Right. And can you build processes around you to support you at what you're bad at, rather than trying to get you out of it? If it's an essential role, like I have an executive assistant, it's not because I'm important that I have an assistant. It's because I'm deeply flawed that I have an assistant, because there's things I can't do, like fill out a form. I can't do that, but I have to. Guess what? I have to, under penalty of perjury. So I will sit on a Zoom call and she will stare at my stupid, dumb face, and I will put it on the screen and she'll go, whenever you're ready. And that's her job. sometimes is to just sit there and metaphorically hold my hand while I do the thing I don't want to do. And that's an example of me of a balance of like, I'm getting support in this area, but I'm not going to be like, hey, go sign this document on my behalf that I'm not going to read. That would be inappropriate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think this is an area where you and I are very much alike. I think we think alike and we work alike in a lot of ways. And that is a great example of the same thing, is that I love to surround myself with operators. I love to surround myself with process people, but also in the same light to say, I know because I'm weak at that, you have the ability to manage me. So you have the ability to tell me to do something. I don't care about hierarchy in this company. If this is something that needs to be done and we've enabled you with this role and this is your area of responsibility that we've given you, you tell me what you need and you tell me to do it and I'll go do it. And I don't have an option to say no. I don't have an option to say, I mean, I might be able to say sorry for sure and hear that I'm going to say sorry. But man, if you can get to that level in your business, I really think that takes you to a whole new level. And ask yourself genuinely, have you freed your people up to manage you? Have you freed your people to say what they need of you and to say it bluntly, or have you not? Because I will tell you, it will hold you back significantly. If your people know what to do, they know where you're weak, but you truly haven't enabled them to be able to speak their mind and tell you what they need from you, and you have the humility just to go and do it and say, yeah, I sucked and I failed here, then that's going to hold your business back for sure, because they're going to be held back from doing what they know they can do in the best way they can do it. Right.
And maybe the even stronger litmus test is not just do people have permission to tell you what to do, but do they have permission to tell you what you're not allowed to do?
Yeah.
And probably a very good sign of your overall EQ, let's say, we're using EQ or soft skills, we're using phrases like this, but like, do you have a relatively high EQ? The question is, are people safe to tell you that you're wrong in your company? Safe meaning, do they fear backlash, or do they receive backlash when they say you're wrong, this is why? If people are allowed to do that to you, that's a very good sign that you at least have developed enough humility to have some dialogues and back and forth. Are you willing to do that? Then can you transfer that over to your clients, to your prospects? Or are you sitting in like, it's my way or the highway, you have to do all of this, and when a client asks you a question, you basically say, who's the expert here, me or you? And then they ghost you and you go, wow, these leads are shit. Thoughts?
So here's a question for you. Do you think that becomes harder as the company grows larger? And if so, do you think that's one of the reasons why larger companies just largely don't innovate anymore, is because that is a pervasive problem that happens and it just becomes a multiplied problem to where you just get stuck and stagnant?
I have a really long answer to this. So I have very strong feelings about what you just asked. I'm going to say the short answer is yes. I think that bigger companies, it's not that they become less agile simply because it takes longer to turn the ship because it's bigger. I think it's because it's a lot harder to check in multiple layers of egos.
Yeah.
But if there is no ego, then there is no friction in decision making. If the best idea really wins, then you should be able to make decisions twice as fast if you have 3 layers of people, because you can check and balance it. You get more perspectives. You can have a holistic answer. If you have a true egoless, not necessarily democracy, I'm not saying everybody has an equal vote, but in theory, that should be the case. I personally believe that the number one motivator of most business culture is shame. And so everybody is way more afraid of making a mistake than they are motivated to do something that they'll be praised for by an order of magnitude. So because of that, that really is what stifles creativity, is nobody's allowed to be wrong.
Yeah, you absolutely just described my experiences when I got acquired. I think there are far too many people that were stuck in, this is my lane, this is my fief, this is my territory, but also compounded what you just said, is that I can't fail and I have to have control over this. And no one wants to make the judgment call, because no one wants to truly be the one that said, I'm accountable for this and it went wrong. So I'd rather do it through a committee. I'd rather take tons of time and have lots of discussions to get through on this before we actually make a true decision. And by now you've completely stalled out. So I think you're right. So then the next question is, how do you slash ego? right? Like how do you identify and find where ego exists and stamp it out? And I'm turning the table back to you again. How do you think you do that?
Well, I think that's a good question. There's a couple layers. I think you have to break that question into two layers, because especially in the context that you're asking it, if we're talking about, like, the word ego is actually not, having ego is not a character flaw. Ego is a part of the human psyche, right? So ego has to do with sort of sense of self. What happens is when you have a bloated ego, so I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to split hairs, but like there is such thing as like healthy ego. Like, I believe in myself, I believe in my ideas, and I'm willing to also pay the price of, I'm willing to stand by everything I said. So I think that you kind of have to talk about the arrogance. Like, arrogance is insecurity with a megaphone. That's what I call it. It's insecurity that will impose itself onto other people. So you have the arrogance / ego, which is usually rooted in fear, because the core belief is, I don't want anybody to know that I'm really actually not as good as I say I am. Or what if, you have imposter syndrome there, and you have insecurity and comparison. Those things breed that arrogance and that ego that we're describing. Is guys who are like, I make so much money that if I make one mistake, people are going to wonder why I make so much money, and they're not going to respect me. And because deep down, you really just don't think you're good enough. So I think that's a lifelong journey to fix. I don't think there's like something you can write in a code of conduct that fixes human nature. But I do think what you can do is cultivate a culture that does not punish errors.
Yes.
So permission to fail, like we do this sometimes with cold callers who get paralyzed with the quote unquote fear of rejection. We just say, okay, you now have a rejection quota. You cannot stop until you've been hung up on 20 times today. And we just gamify what they're afraid of and realize like, oh, getting hung up on it's nothing. If I don't want it to be, it means literally nothing to me. But right now I'm deciding that it's going to affect me. But if you have a culture where, like, for example, if whatever you cultivate or whatever you celebrate, you cultivate. If you celebrate risk taking, more people will take risks. If you celebrate the CYA insurance, the cover your ass insurance, which is the last 40 minutes of every 20-minute meeting, is everybody just jockeying to get other people's name on the decision alongside them to get co-signers so that they don't go down if the idea fails. That is corporate bureaucracy. That is 90% of what energy is spent on covering your own ass.
Yep.
But if instead it's like, hey guys, I tried this thing, it was not successful. They go, oh man, thanks for taking the shot, buddy. What do you think we learned from this? If the culture does that, I think you kill ego overnight.
Yep. So again, this comes full circle back to self-awareness, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. If we're talking about overinflated expectations of yourself and who you think you are, that's then projected onto other people, that's simply not realistic. All of this comes back to that same idea of self-reflection, being good at that. So I think you're exactly right. And I also think so much of this does come back to that same discussion of being understanding and willing to suck. Like Kyle talks about this as like dare to suck, right? Is another way to say it. And we talk about that often of like, let's not just be willing to do it. Let's be daring to do it. Let's try and chase a bad idea because we learn from those bad ideas, and so many more pivots come out of that. And I do think this is why I love the 0 to 1. This is why I love like starting, like building something new versus coming in. I don't think I'll ever be like a turnaround CEO. I don't think I'll ever be like, oh, we're like, 100 million in and we're just ready to put the bow on the IPO. I don't think I'll ever be that person. I just love the 0 to 1. And one of the fun but hard things about the 0 to 1 is coming into a conversation and saying, yeah, we're not doing that well. Yeah, that sucks. Man, thank you for bringing that up. Like, that's something we're going to have to go work on and fix, because now I have a clear vision on some of the things we should be doing. I can rush to go solve that very tactically and very precisely, versus the other boat of, so much stuff is done and the polish is there that we don't even kind of know the vision of where the future lies for us. And we had that conversation this morning on our L10. We talked about a client that chewed us out over something. That's probably strong. they're very unhappy of some significant things that we missed on. And we learned so many lessons on that. One, why we didn't get in front of that early enough. And two, one of the things we also learned was they gave us some solid product feedback. If we want to mature in a couple areas, we got to go build. It was so helpful. And third, they said, she made this comment. She said, this product looks like a 1-year-old company. We said, we are a 1-year-old company. She goes, I didn't know that. That makes so much more sense. And she's like, I'm sorry for all the things I've said. We're like, are you kidding? This is so valuable for us to know what we should go and build. And so what an awesome conversation that dare to suck mentality unlocked for us, because all I'm doing is I'm like soaking this up. And I'm like this. And I think she felt bad for how much she unloaded on us. But it was one of the best meetings I think we've had in months because of how much good intelligence she gave us on where we need to go and build and correct. And as a 1-year-old company, I don't have a lot of tech debt, so I can go rush into a lot of those things pretty quickly, right? And I love that. And I think it's hard to get at a larger company for sure.
That's something I've struggled with a lot for most of my career is honestly, is feedback. It used to be, I was so bad at being bad at things, because I was just a top performer, like personality type. Like I'm really good at being great. I'm a very gracious winner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that means that I'm not super comfortable when I don't like not knowing how to do stuff. And I really don't like people seeing me not knowing how to do stuff, and I got a lot of client feedback, 6 months into my, the new version of Feel Good, that was honestly 90% of it was not useful at all. We just had a very, very bad culture fit with a client who, it was a long story. I'll tell you sometime over a beer. But I basically sent this email, firing this client. And he said, well, you know what? Hey, I've always been told feedback is a gift. And he sent me 3 long ass emails of all of these things that he's like, you should change this about yourself. You should change this about yourself. And we added a clause to our agreement because of that feedback. That's come into play more than once now. But almost all of it was this is just a direct attack on my character, that this is this guy's wife's yelling at him and he's just saying the same things to me. This has nothing to do with me. And so once I figured out how to pick through and let that stuff miss you, that's okay, this isn't actually about me. But when you can hear this is still helpful even if it's not about me, or this there's a, you chew the meat and you spit out the bones. That's helped me a lot, to where now I got an email this weekend from a client who's like, hey, thanks so much. This is my notice that I'm not renewing. He's 6 months into 12 months. He has 10x'd his ROI. He's halfway into the year. He's earning 10 times what he's paying me, and he's not renewing. And I'm going, okay, I could sit here and whine about this, or I could go, tell me more about, okay, great, no problem. You don't have to renew. What would have made it worth it? 20x, 30x? Or is this a problem with the way I positioned? Or is this what you want and what I offer is not the same thing? And honestly, 2 years ago, that would have got my goat for 3 days. What do you freaking people want from me? That was 10x in 6 months, not worth it. But do you see what I mean?
I do.
My relationship with feedback has changed because I've been able to discern what of it is about me and what of it is not about me, and what stuff is just not worth taking ownership of or taking responsibility for. And that's really helped me navigate those, so that people don't have to give feedback perfectly in order for me to receive it.
Yep. I love that. We do something similar to that and this is something I've learned over the years, is that I don't have to defend myself. In fact, if I do defend myself, by nature of me going on defensive, it turns into an argument. So a lot of times I will receive critical feedback, and I'm constantly, if I'm hearing it, I'm constantly I try not to make it look like this, but in my brain, I'm constantly filtering through all my decision trees of, is this right or is this wrong? Is this informed? Is this uninformed? Is this correct? Is this fair? Is it unfair? Blah, blah, blah. But the thing that I try to do over and over is not defend myself. I don't have to win an argument. I don't have to win the fight. I don't have to go and protect anything. And so a lot of times when we walk into that, if anyone cancels Empath, one of the first things we do is we send them a little email or a little DM on LinkedIn. And we just say, hey, how'd we fail you? It's such an open way to just say, just tell me how at this point, I don't care about measuring whether it's correct or not. Just tell me where I failed. And that just unlocks so much freedom from them to say what they want to say. And again, you can hear it and say, dude, they're a dumpster fire. Of course, this was not okay. It's no problem.
Right.
But they also are going to say a lot of things that are really useful and helpful for you to understand. And yes, so I agree. And I think a lot of times we try to, our ego turns it into a fight, turns it into a battle, turns into something to go and defend. And I mentioned this before. I am super competitive. Alex he jokes about this all the time. I will stack things on my shoulder. I got chips on my shoulder a mile high, but I never let them show because I don't want to. If I let them show, it will absolutely corrupt so much of who I am and how I act and how I'm seen. I just let it stack up as like, okay, those are some things to go fix. Those are some things to go be better at. These are some things to win, but it's not in that conversation. I don't have to defend myself and win the conversation because I'm never going to win it. Just not. So yeah, I am 100% with you on that.
This was a really insightful conversation. And I think any listener, how should I say this? Anybody should be able to listen to what you've just said and be like, okay, not only could I be a better salesperson, I think I could be a better person if I took some of this advice. Just in case, we need to be above reproach. If somebody says, I thought this was the MSP Sales Podcast. Do we have a bow to tie on this to show to somebody, like, what are our takeaways here? What are our AI summary takeaways for somebody who wants to sell more? They want to do more business. They want their MSP to grow. Maybe this is business development stages. Maybe this is new client acquisition. Like, what advice do we have for them, for the listener, about how soft skills and self-awareness and developing your EQ can have a direct impact on your ability to grow?
So I think a couple things. I think, okay, so my background's in cyber. So let's take it from that angle for a minute, right? People don't buy cyber. People are never going to buy your cybersecurity, anything. They don't care. They don't care about the vendor and the names behind it and your uptime and they don't care about any of that stuff. So if you start to recognize things like, you know what I should really do is self-awareness of understanding that, and then really start to invest in them, in the conversations and who they are and what their business is doing and what they're trying to accomplish and achieve and what some of their wins are and what some of their struggles are. If I can get to that level of the ethos of the conversation, talking to a business owner about what they care about most and what they're building towards and what their dreams are and their visions are, then things unlock into place when they know the Bob Berg, people do business with those they know, like, and trust, but really kind of showing that to them, right? To twist that a little bit and to say, it's on me to prove that I know them, like them, and trust that they trust me. And that happens by asking lots of good questions to them and shutting up and listening and let them talk about who they are and their dreams and where they're going, what their objectives are, and all those things. I have seen that work personally. I'm not speaking from the ivory tower on that. I've been a CIO at a bank working with a whole bunch of like rich bank owners on the bank board that don't care at all about cyber. And they have to do it because the regulations say. So I had to learn how to have those conversations to get to that level to where I could get their support and buy-in to get some of those things accomplished. And what I learned was when you do a great job of it, all of a sudden the red lines of like what this thing costs, it's fine. We got to do it. Yeah. No big deal. I'm not excited about it, but it's no big deal because I understand what we're getting towards. I know that you understand where we're going. And so if that's what we got to do to get there, there's just cost of business. And to me, that's what, if we can get so much of sales into that level and it turns into, especially in MSP world, where it becomes a cost of business to enable where I want to go as an owner, how is that not a bad thing?
And you transitioning from the ego being in a board meeting going, I am the IT expert here. You need to take my advice. That wasn't selling anything. That was not moving the needle. But when you realized all jobs promote to a sales job and you were officially a salesperson trying to sell these people the thing that's going to keep them from going to prison or losing their business, but you had to work on their behalf and you had to make them understand how it helps them achieve where they want to go. So you have to get your ego of like, I'm the expert. Why are you not doing what I say? Guess what? Nobody gives a shit about you or how smart you are. Nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. So when you made that pivot to go, hey, CEO, totally understand this is a little bit of a black box. Let me explain what my role is in helping you hit that goal. And here's what I need. And then they go, oh, that's expensive. Okay, pull the trigger, send it. Because it was contextualized. So those skills, right? That's the whole story right there. That's my whole life mission in one example.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. Any other takeaways? Any other nuggets that you want to drop here, or do you think we've done our job?
I think we've done our job for sure. But for me, I think it just be in that constant improvement mentality of like, there's so much to go and learn and grow. And I don't think that ever ends for us, right? I don't think that we get to that stage where like, think I got most of this figured out and I got it. I'm constantly wanting to learn something new and what's someone doing about this, or what is it I don't know about that. So I think those are, that is, and I know it's cliche to sort of say of constantly be learning and growing, but I do think there's something to humility that comes across that unlocks the ability to be a constant learner and someone that wants to constantly grow and hone skills and develop things that you're just is not native to you. A case in point for me lately is learning some of the operational mechanics of running the business and talking about to investors about what growth and scale looks like, and learning to speak some of their language to make life a lot easier and give them the confidence that I understand the knowledge necessary to be able to grow this company. Right. Right now, that's been heavily something I've been learning and growing quite a bit. So yeah, I think that's the other thing too, is just learning. There's always going to be the next step up for you. And the second you want to take your foot off that treadmill and abdicate it and let someone else run it so you don't have to, is the poison pill that is going to have stagnation for your company. And if you want to avoid it, to me, that's a huge way to get out of it.
Yeah. Wes, you're a legend, man. Thank you for giving me an hour, of your time. If anybody wants to, I know, right? Isn't that crazy? Where do people find you? Where do you want to send them if they want to learn more about what you guys are doing?
Just hit me up on LinkedIn, just Wes Spencer. Send me a message. I'll send you one right back. Well, maybe not right back, but I will send you a message back. Definitely. Just hit me up there. And if you want to more about our company and what we're doing, empathmsp.com, and I'd love to chat if that is a good fit for anyone as well.
Right on. Thanks for being here.
Brian, thanks, man. Super fun.